Well, last year, the inspirational Presbyterian minister and author Frederick Buechner died on August the 15th. I had never taken the time to read Buechner, even though I had heard him quoted many times over the previous 5 years. He was a favorite of a few of my Charleston colleagues. Well, when I arrived here at the beginning of January, I quickly got down to the business of sorting out my new office. On my first visit, I found a few books which had been left on a lonely bookcase in my office. 2 of those books were by Frederick Buechner. Now, I'm not sure whose books they are, but I have now included them in my library. Books are a bit like umbrellas. Never owned, always borrowed, which is why I lock my office door. This past week, for the first time ever, I opened up one of those abandoned books by Buechner and began to read. On the first page of this particular book, Buechner has a story about a deceased friend and a dream. One of Buechner's friends had died the previous year, and so he and his wife decided to go visit his friend's widow. During one of the nights that they were visiting, Buechner had a dream that his dead friend was standing in the bedroom in which he was sleeping. Buechner asked him in the dream, "Are you really here, Dudley?" His friend responded affirmatively, to which Buechner said, "Prove it." Well, his friend Dudley plucked a bit of wool from his sweater and flicked it at Buechner. He caught it between his thumb and forefinger, and the sensation of doing so was so real that he was woken from his dream. That morning over breakfast, Buechner told his wife and his friend's widow what had taken place in his dream. His wife stopped him mid-sentence to tell him that as she was getting dressed that morning, she saw a piece of wool lying next to his side of the bed. Buechner ran upstairs, and there it was, the piece of wool that he had caught in his dream. Now, Buechner would be the first to say that there may well be nothing at all to make of this experience. The piece of fabric may have been there for a very long time, and yet neither he nor his wife noticed it until that morning. Now, we may choose to call such a thing a coincidence, but more than one wise person has said, coincidences may well be God's way of remaining anonymous. These thoughts converge for me today as we stand once again alongside Thomas and his experience of the risen Jesus. We could, of course, this morning dwell deeply in the differences between doubt and faith. We could drag poor Thomas through the dirt and lament his inability to trust his friend's story about seeing the risen Jesus. Or we could extol the wonderful virtues of doubting and questioning as they are an essential part of having faith. We could do all of that today, but I think I will save that until next year. Today I am more drawn towards the wisdom of T.S. Eliot with which I began this morning. We had the experience, but we missed the meaning. Or we had the experience, and we failed to invest that experience with meaning. That very well could have been Thomas's experience of the risen Jesus. That very well could have been the conclusion of everyone's experience of the risen Christ. They could have had the experience, but completely missed the meaning. We have the same options that human beings have had down through the ages: to make nothing of the things that happen in our lives, or to make meaning of the things that we experience day in and day out. If we choose to make meaning, and I think we definitely should, then we are going to need the tools to do so. And I am sure it will not shock you, but the God who created all things, saves all things, the God who raised Jesus from the dead, well, he gives us some pretty good tools to make meaning of our lives. And on one level, that is exactly what every writer of the biblical books was doing. They were answering the question, what does this mean? What does this mean in relation to the experiences of their lives? And why should we stop doing the same? Why shouldn't we take everything that has and will happen to us and ask, in light of the resurrection of Christ, what does this mean? God is one of us, died as one of us, and then rose to never die again as one of us. In light of that, what does all of this mean? If we ask that question over and over, I wonder how many times that we too will have to say, my Lord and my God. Well, this week just seems like it's one of those weeks where things are going to keep coinciding for whatever reason. Our apartment manager likes to put inspirational signs outside of the elevator in our building. This week, coincidence or not, is the following quotation from Marcel Proust. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. We don't need new things to look at. We need resurrection eyes to look at them and find meaning for our lives. I had heard a lot about Frederick Buechner before I arrived in Reading. There were a few books with seeming randomness left behind in my new office. 2 of them were by Frederick Buechner. Now, that is a random coincidence, or it is God anonymously telling me it's time to find some more meaning in your life. Well, all I can say is, my Lord and my God. Amen.